Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a very interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the brand new Shirogorov F95 Zero. Zero, what is that? Is that like a special variant? Or no, this is actually the new F95. This is the evolution of it. I have reviewed the original F95, or at least the version that came before this. And I wanted to talk about this guy because it's got some interesting changes. Yes, this is an expensive knife. This is the real thing. A lot of people ask me, like, where do you get Shirogorovs? I really don't want to end up with a fake one or a counterfeit. Recon One. That's where you want to go. These are not sitting around and, by the hundreds waiting for people to buy them. They can be hard to get, they are sought after, and they are going to be very expensive. It just is what it is. We will talk about the price, right? But if expensive knives bother you, I wouldn't watch this video. Honestly, I wouldn't. If it bothers you, right? I mean, that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about an expensive knife. This is like the flagship model, the F95. When people talk about Shirogorov, this is the knife that is popping into their head most of the time. This is mine. I paid for it. I paid full price for it. I do not have an affiliate program worked out with Recon One, so I don't benefit it. I wanted to add this to my collection, and I'm going to tell you guys what I think. Thanks so much to my patrons for supporting me right now. There's a link for Patreon right down below. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Let's go ahead and measure it. Overall length of the Shirogorov F95 Zero coming in at about 8.75 inches, maybe 8.8 inches. Overall blade length is almost 4 inches, about 3.85. Cutting edge is 4 inches. How? Because the cutting edge, right, if you measure from this middle area right here, the cutting edge is pretty much like right in line. The ratios on Shirogorov knives are very, very good. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Ontario Rat Model 2. You can see here, this is absolutely a full-size knife. How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3? Once again, definitely bigger than both here. And last but not least, for the regular size comparisons, up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, and the Benchmade Bug Outs. How about up against some Shirogorov knives? We know you have more Shirogorovs. Yes, I do. How about up against the best knife design ever? And yeah, I actually do think that. The greatest knife design in existence, I think, is the F3. And we will talk about how it compares with the F95. Here it is up against the F3. You can see here that it is extremely similar to the F3, other than the F95 is a titanium frame lock and the F3 is a titanium liner lock with, in this case, carbon fiber scales. How about up against the Shirogorov Quantum? We're at kind of an angle here. The truth is that all of these knives are exactly the same length with the same cutting edge and the same handle length. They're just 3 different designs. Shirogorov really likes that 8.8. It's like 8 3/4 inches to 8.85 inches, right? With a 3.85 to 4 inch blade. They really like that. A lot of their knives are kind of like that. So that's kind of what we're getting here. Let's go ahead and talk about carry profile. So thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It's really not all that thick. It's actually a teeny tiny bit thinner than the Spyderco Para 3. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. You can see here, while this is a big knife, these Shirogorov knives never carry very big, right? So if you think about, like, we're looking at nearly the same length between the PM2 and the Shirogorov, but look at the difference in cutting edge. It is freaking crazy how much cutting edge they managed to pack into this thing, with it being this. I mean, really, we were talking about essentially the same height or length as the PM2. And then even with the flipper tab, it really doesn't get nearly as tall. And it's kind of hard to see that, with this being on top. But yeah, the profile, these Shirogorov knives just carry a lot smaller than they actually are. This guy definitely has some skeletonization going on the inside. And as per usual, they've went out of their way to make that whole area really nice, even though your hands will never interact with it. It's just the kind of machining that you're gonna get with a Shirogorov. Anyways, let's go ahead and do the hardware check. Get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. But wait, what? Can't use Torx on this because it's got proprietary I'm kidding. This isn't proprietary hardware. It's got a, yeah, you can buy a special tool, right? Like Shirogorov makes a special $250 tool that you, don't do that. If you want to know what I do, honestly, I mean, yeah, like you could use a screwdriver. I use a little, I use a little aluminum coin, and it doesn't really matter what it is. And then I just wrap it in a cloth, and it'll easily fit inside of that little slot right there, and you can turn it. What sucks, what's an actual valid complaint, because the proprietary hardware thing is not a valid, that's just people being whiny for the sake of being whiny. What's a valid complaint is the fact that we're still, for some reason, looking at a free spinning pivot. Shirogorov, come on. No, we need a D-shaped pivot barrel or something, a D-shaped cap, whatever. Come on, guys. No more of this free spinning. That is ridiculous. No free spinning pivots, please. You can do the same thing right here, or you can take a little, what I do sometimes is I take a credit card and I just cut like an old useless credit card and cut it into the shape of a screwdriver head. And then, you know, if you want to, you can actually double up on them and just kind of sand it down to give it some rigidity, tape them together, glue it together, whatever. And you can turn those screws, right? If you don't want to use a metal tool to scratch up the hardware, right? Or if you don't care, then go ahead and use a metal tool because you bought it. You can do whatever you want with it, right? But no, you do not need to buy some special tool. Nobody's locking you out of the knife or anything like that. I don't know why they insist on that over just using Torx when they're clearly not above using Torx for the lock bar insert screw, but okay, whatever. It's not really that big of a deal. Let's go ahead and weigh it, right? Materials on this, we are looking at this is a production model. It's not a custom model, so we're looking at titanium and M390. Titanium and M390, I can get those materials for, yeah, we know. You can definitely get these materials for substantially less money in a different knife. Is it the same thing as the Shirogorov F95? No, it is not. If you handle it, right, for a lot of, I'm not saying the price on this guy is totally justified, but is there a difference between a $200 knife utilizing M390 and titanium? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. The weight is coming in at 5 ounces, which is definitely off if you're going by the whole ounce and inch thing. You're getting 4 inches of cutting edge for 5 inches of weight. The balance, though, is pretty darn good. In fact, it's right in the middle of where they want you to put your index finger. So when you pick this up, it really doesn't feel like a 5-ounce knife. It feels extremely well balanced, honestly. Blade stock thickness. Let's go ahead and do that here real quick. I bet it's about 145 to 150 thousandths. Maybe it's a little bit more. I don't know. We'll find out. Oh, it's closer to 155 thousandths. Yeah. So fairly thick on the spine. I think that's the same way with my F3, and maybe the Quantum is a little bit thinner. I'm not really sure. All right, let's go ahead and talk about this. So right off the bat, when I got this thing, it was tight. That never bothers me. A lot of people, when they talk about Shirogorov knives, they talk about the insane smoothness, right? Oh, Shirogorovs are so smooth. Oh yeah, they are. They are very, very smooth. Usually, they'll go through a break-in period, right? And in my opinion, that's a good thing. There's the Quantum. The Quantum's the one I've had for the longest, and it is definitely the smoothest. All of these are multi-row bearings. When I got the F3, it was pretty tight, right? But now it's dropping shut. I mean, readily dropping shut. Sorry, I'm trying to get that a little bit slower so you guys can actually see. There we go. There we go. Yeah, my F95 was very tight. It has absolutely broken in since then, but it's still got a little bit, to go. Why do you want that? Why wouldn't you want to drop shut out of the gate? I don't want anything drop shut out of the gate. It just tells me that it's going to be super loosey-goosey and I'm going to have to adjust it at some point. Shirogorovs that are real tight to begin with, right, to the point where you almost have to help them out with your index finger or whatever, they get incredibly smooth and they stay solid on lockup. They don't wiggle or anything like that. Now, you know, some people, theirs break in a little bit faster. Here we're looking at probably about 3 weeks of break-in since I bought it. And in another 3 weeks, it'll be even smoother, and eventually it'll be doing exactly the same thing as my F3. And that's what I'm looking for, that controlled action and that tight, solid lockup. So if you buy one of these, do not expect it. In some cases, they might, but I would not expect, just get somebody who has owned multiple Shirogorovs. I would not expect these things to be absolutely glass smooth right out of the gate. I love letting them break in because the end result is just amazing. And there's nothing quite like the smoothness of a Shirogorov, the multi-row bearings, right? They do make different models with single row bearings, and some of those get pretty smooth as well. But those multi-row bearing Shirogorovs are just freaking insane when they finally break in and get just like their sort of peak smoothness. This guy just needs a little bit of encouragement. I watched Lev on his reel of his, and his is just, it's doing the same thing as my F3. That's just what they do after a while. Ergonomics. The F95 has always had essentially perfect ergonomics. I will say I still prefer the F3 because it's got the contoured scales and it fills out the hand just a little bit more. If you want to see thickness of these two guys, the F95 is absolutely thinner in the handle because it's not working with liners and scales. It's just the scales, right? They are flat and not contoured, so while it's very comfortable, the ergonomic lines are perfect. There's lots of room. The pocket clip is perfect and not a hot spot at all, right? The edges are completely and totally knocked down, just beautifully, beautifully rounded, right? It's very comfortable. It just doesn't feel the hand quite as good as the F3. So it's like, this is an A+ on ergos. The F3 is an A++. It just feels a little tiny bit better. That's the truth. The F95 has always been an incredibly simple design. A lot of people describe them as folding steak knives. It's a good way to describe it. That's what it looks like. There's, you know, they do crazier stuff on some of the custom division ones, but the production ones always kind of look like this. Periodically, you can get versions that have, you know, like Monkey Edge will do a frag version of it, and they might do some with some interesting inlays or something like that. Maybe eventually they'll do some with carbon fiber inlays. That would be pretty cool. In fact, if they do something like that, I would probably pick up another one. Spoiler alert, this review is going to be pretty good if you haven't figured that out yet. Yeah, I do like the plain look. I think they call this a nudist version, which makes sense. I like how it looks. Just the simple lines right here, not anything too crazy. They still have these little areas where they do fun things like, you know, this texturing sort of goes up and around, or this little cutout right here, this scalloping goes up and around the screw to make room for it, right? And the edges, the bowl around the screw is sort of knocked down or bowled in. The edges sort of change direction and turn into different shapes or scallops as they approach these contoured areas. And then the backspacer, it's doing its own thing. There's interesting milling down here around the area where the lanyard hole goes in. There's a ton of interesting milling going on with the pocket clip. We've got these little micro lines that are coming off the back right below the relief cut. Same thing up here, just interesting, unique lines, or not unique, just intricate is what I'm trying to say here. Unique in the sense that there's never really been anything like Shirogorov has always been Shirogorov. It's always been kind of its own thing, and then other people, other knife designs have definitely borrowed and copied elements, right? It's just kind of how it goes. But these intricate lines that are there for people who want to look closely, that's what's fun. At first glance, it just looks like a simple knife, and then you look close and you realize, wow, every last little line is purposeful and intricate. The blade on the F95, I thought it was identical to the F3. It's very close, but it is not identical. At first glance, right, you'd think, yeah, it is. But if you look here, the little area that's cut out for the jimping, right, this is actually, it looks like it's actually carved out right here. On the F3, it's just sort of a line, right? It sort of just follows, the line is the line for the flat, right? Also, the spines look different. This guy has more of a swedge coming up to the spine. This guy just kind of straight here, right? Chamfered edges, but straight. And then this is just sort of a gradual taper down to the tip. This has more of an abrupt angle once we get to here, and then it kind of, there's an angle and it drops. Outside of that, they're extremely similar. The F3 has a little bit of a more prominent flat. The F95, its flat is a little bit thinner. Down at the edge, they feel exactly the same. These knives will slice. This thing came razor sharp, and it's got 4 inches of razor sharp M390. Flat ground blade, very, very sharp, very, very good tip for puncturing things that a knife should puncture, so keep that in mind. The finish on it is very similar to the finish on the F95, if not identical. It's just sort of a cloudy tumbling. Really like it. Everything looks really classy and nice. I mean, I bought this for this look. I like the look of the blade. I like the finish on the blade. I like the finish on the titanium, which is a slightly darker tumbling. It's just really nice. Nice sharpening choil. The flipper tab. This is the hardest flipping. This F95 has the heaviest detent of any Shirogorov I have ever handled. It just does. I kind of just sort of brace on that flipper tab there and pull. You definitely want to light switch it. At least that's my, see, because if you push button, you're going to do that. Kind of light switch it. It's very, very powerful, that snap that comes out of there. Really, really satisfying. Awesome access to the lock bar because of this enormous, generous cutout here. No double clutch, right? Turn sideways and just, it's actually getting smoother as this review goes along. Really, really satisfying flipper. One of the most satisfying flippers that I have ever handled. Is the Detent heavier than the F3? Yes, the F3 is kind of a medium to medium heavy detent. It's just right? This guy is definitely heavier. In fact, it probably doesn't need to be that heavy. It just is. As I continue to flip this, like all flippers, it will break in a little bit, but this F95 is absolutely heavier than the F3. Same with the Quantum. In fact, I would say, hold on. The Quantum has the lightest detent. They're all great, they're all fine, but they're all doing their own thing. Lightest, just a little bit heavier, much heavier. That's definitely my experience. I don't know if your experience will vary. I can't say that I've handled a ton of F95s. I do remember the F95 that I handled so long ago. It was a pretty heavy detent as well, right? But it does make for an extremely powerful flip. There is nothing, like the F3, the only thing that kind of stinks is they put the logo on the blade. Just like the Quantum though, the logo is back here on the butt of the handle. You can see right there, the little, sorry, it didn't get in focus, the little bear logo. I like that. I kind of like that it's not on the blade. I'm happy and completely okay that they put it back here. I think that looks nice. I would literally not change a single thing about the ergonomic lines. I mean, it's that good. Shirogorovs have some of the best ergonomics that you could ask for. The one thing that bothers me is that they insist on this more decorative jimping pattern. The Quantum, like, this is what they should have done. This is a little bit more functional. It's still kind of slippery. The old jimping that was much more like Spyderco, like this, if I remember correctly, functional jimping would be awesome, Shirogorov. I don't know why we're doing this. This doesn't do anything. It's not functional, right? I mean, it's a little bit different. This is a little tiny bit more functional, but on the F95, it's basically useless. I don't know why they do that, but, you know, okay. Moving on here, I do like the gear pattern we have on the backspacer, and I do like the way it sort of connects or just sort of molds into the titanium. That's really nice. Really, really intricate machine work back here, and it's very much appreciated. I mean, they could have easily just done a simple, you know, just a little thing. And by the way, the blade shape, the difference is here. The blade shape is a little bit different on the Zero. The jimping is definitely different. I believe this area is a little bit different. A lot of the little, you know, some of the tiny like chamfer lines and things like that. This area is different. Backspacer's different. I think the pocket clip is different. Outside of that, though, I don't think there's a whole lot that is different. I mean, it's largely the same F95 that we have come to know and love. But yeah, those are the major differences there. There might be a slight difference in weight. There might be a difference in how they mill these out, but these are largely, you know, about the same. This is an exposed frame lock with a steel lock bar insert. Fortunately, there's quite a bit of room over here on the frame, so you won't have to worry too much about accidentally putting pressure on that lock bar. The lock bar insert does double as the over travel stop. There is a big old fat stop pin right back here, and there's some nice shouldering right there. We have lockup. It's more contact than it looks like. Can we actually, no, of course we can't see it. Because of the angle of this, it's really hard for you to show exactly how much, but it is early. We're probably looking at 15 to 20%. Lockup, completely and totally solid. There is no lock stick on regular. You'll create lock stick if you do stuff like that to test it, but on regular deployments and lockout, no lock stick whatsoever. Pivot lash, none. Very smooth, and the detent, like I said, is super duper heavy. Let me show you guys from the front. Very heavy. Centering, absolutely, completely, and totally perfect. The F95 is still the F95. It just looks a lot more fancy now. It's got little tiny changes here and there that just kind of add that quality of life improvement. The one thing that makes no sense is changing the texturing here to something that is not functional, right? Other than that, though, it feels like the same knife, just a little bit fancier, right? It's kind of like, it's just like the Corvette, right? It's just the new Corvette, right? Price tag. Wow, $1,120. As a Shirogorov owner, as owner of multiple Shirogorovs, do I think that price makes sense? No, but not in the way that people expect me to say. People expect me to say, like, this shouldn't cost more than $200 or $300. No, this is definitely in a higher tier. We are talking about, you know, an equivalent tier to like the Koenig Arias, knives from Brown Knives, and others, definitely. But this is way up there. I don't think that this knife should cost $1,100. Same thing with the Quantum is like $1,200. That doesn't make any sense to me. The best priced one is the F3. And if you want to know, it's like I said at the beginning, the F3 is still a better design all the way around. It's a closed off, right? It's got contoured scales. They fill the hand better. And instead of being an exposed frame lock, it is a liner lock that is arguably just as strong as this frame lock. It's just a better design, right? It also has a detent in this case that is nowhere near as aggressive as the F95. The F95 is good, but I have no idea why they think it should be more expensive than the F3. The F95 should cost something like $900. It should cost about the same as the F3. That's what I honestly think. Now, I obviously liked it enough to go ahead and overpay, so it's like, how do I really feel, right? You can say what you want with your mouth, but you know, your true thoughts are going to come out in your wallets, right? So I don't know, I guess take that with a grain of salt. It does feel like it's a bit overpriced, right? I'm not talking $800 overpriced. It's just not the same knife. I mean, 99% of the people who pick this up and handle it will be able to go, oh wow, this is definitely not the same thing. It's definitely not in the same caliber. Now that being said, do you need to spend $800 or $900 on a pocket knife to experience utility? No! Oh my God, no! This is definitely 100% enthusiast territory. You do not need to do this. This video is for people who are already considering spending money in this tier, likely because they've been here for a while. Should I pick up a Shirogorov? Is it worth the money? I think it's a bit high, but if you can choke down that price tag, you are gonna love it. Honestly, I'd wait for an F3. The F95 is cool, and I'm happy that I've got it in my collection, but the F3 is superior, and it will save you $220. Seriously, $220. The F3, I think, is priced pretty appropriately. A lot of these full titanium frame lock Shiros are just kind of, you know, they're just too much money, right? It's cool, though. They do a... the Ultimate, because I love the feeling of titanium, they do a custom division version of the F3 here that has titanium scales. Now that would truly, for me, be the Ultimate. But those are the ones that cost like $2,000 or more. So anyways, do I recommend the F95? I mean, it's a great knife. It's a lot of money. I don't recommend it over the F3. So, you know, I hope this makes sense. This is one of my favorite knives, though. The F95 is still one of my favorite knives of all time. Easily Easily. And I just love that the frame locks are their frame locks are so unbelievably solid, no matter what. I love these knives. This is still one of my favorite knives of all time, but not one that I openly recommend. I want to be very clear about that. No, if you're going to go with a Shirogorov, the best one still is the F3, but the F95 is great. That's going to be pretty much it. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex if you enjoyed this video. Leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do of course have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.